Hey, it's Joanna. Welcome back. Today, I want to talk about something that's going to make a really big difference to your oracle practice, to your tarot card practice, really to any intuitive practice that you use in your life. And that something is the questions that you start with, the questions that you ask. So, if you've ever pulled an oracle card or a tarot card and not really understood what it's supposed to be telling you, what you're supposed to do with it, that's totally normal. It doesn't mean that the oracle cards don't work for you or that the tarot cards don't work for you. It doesn't mean that you're not intuitive. You are absolutely intuitive. Everybody is. It might just take a little bit of practice to get good at this skill. It's a skill like any other, and it's going to need some of your focus and some of your attention if you want to improve. And the problem could really be as simple as the question you ask. So, in this video, we'll talk about what it means to ask better questions, what better questions actually look like, what to avoid when you're phrasing your questions. And I'll even share a bunch of powerful questions that I use all the time that I think you're going to love. So, first things first, let's establish once and for all that your questions really, really do matter. And here's why. First of all, there's the energy aspect. So, you're going to get what you put in, or you're going to get something that's equal to what you put in. So even in physics, there's a law that states that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. In computing, the output is dependent on the input, right? If you use tools like AI, like ChatGPT, then you already know that the answers you get are very much dependent on what you put in, on the question you ask, on what you ask for. And we know that this is true by observing the very large number of online businesses who are now selling ChatGPT prompts. So there is a whole market for prompts right now. There is a whole section of the online business world that is about asking better questions of ChatGPT. And that relationship between the question and the answer is the same for the questions that you ask your oracle cards, your tarot cards, or any other intuitive tools that you use. The quality of your answer literally depends on the quality of your question. Secondly, there's the spiritual aspect. So I work with a spirit team called the Avalon Collective, and they have told me time and time again that they can only give me the information that I ask for. So I need to consciously be aware of what it is that I need, of what it is that I want to know for them to be able to help me in the way that I want them to help me. This is because although we are souls and have a soul path to follow, we are also human beings and we have free will. I'll say more about this later in the video, but for now, let's just agree that there is something in your relationship with your spirit guides, in your relationship with your higher self, that puts you in charge. You are the boss. So it's in your best interest to not only be specific about what you're asking for, but to be honest with yourself about what you really want to know. And as a little bit of a side note, I know that when you're using your oracle cards, when you're using your tarot cards, it's not always the case that you are talking to your spirit guides. A lot of the time, you are talking to yourself, right? To your soul, to your inner world, to your subconscious. But the same applies. Your answer is dependent on the question you ask. And even then, like even if even if you're using your tools from a purely psychological standpoint and just getting answers from your subconscious, I don't know. I just think that there is some spiritual magic involved here as well. I do think that the intuition is a link to your soul self. And so even when the answers are coming from within you, I feel like there's an element of the spiritual world helping out, you know? I do think there's a little bit of magic there as well. Which means that that rule about only getting what you ask for applies. And thirdly, there's the practical aspect of why your question matters. If you ask a good question, you have something to relate your answer to. If you just pull a card or ask a really vague question, then it's really difficult to apply whatever you see in the card to something. There's nothing to apply it to, which means that it remains in that realm of of advice and can't actually translate into something actionable, something that you can actually do in your real life to make your life better. So, as an example, say you pull a card of the day and it says trust on it. Now, that's pretty vague, right? Like, if you got that message and you didn't ask a question and you didn't really have anything in mind to apply that to, then it's really vague. Like, what are you supposed to do with that? Yes, you could go through your day and trust every impulse you get. But that's unlikely to happen. What's more likely to happen is that you leave that card lying on your table, lying on your desk, and go about your day and really forget about it, right? Whereas if you ask about your work, so if you ask a specific question like, what do I need to know about my work right now? And you get that trust card for that question, then you at least know that you need to relate that trust to your work, right? So you might think about, well, what have I been thinking about doing in my work? Maybe I need to trust that impulse more. Or maybe you'll just go about your day and something will happen during your work day and you'll remember that you're meant to trust that everything is unfolding as it should, and it would color the way that you approach that situation. Now, if you're really good at remembering the messages, then you might be able to apply it in that way, even if you don't have that original question. But especially if you're a beginner, or if you have a tendency to just take the card and be like, oh, okay, that's interesting, and then, kind of keep it separate from the rest of your day, then asking that more specific question will really help you apply the guidance that you get. All right, so we can agree that the question that you start with when you're working with your oracle or tarot cards or another intuitive tool really, really matters. Now, let's talk about what makes a question powerful. A powerful question comes from your inner power, from a place of confidence. It assumes that you know what you're doing, that you believe in the possibility of whatever it is that you desire happening for you in your life, and that you understand that you affect the things in your life, that you are an active participant, and that you are in charge of your life and your choices. Now, I know that a lot of the time when we turn to our cards, when we turn to these intuitive tools, what we actually want is for somebody else to tell us what to do. We're lost, we're scared, we're unsure, we're in doubt. And so we want someone else to step in and say that it's okay, and shine a light on whatever the next right step is, and give us that assurance, that 100% assurance that if we do whatever it is that we're supposed to do, we'll get wherever it is we want to get to. However, that's not possible. And I'm sure you know by now that that's not possible. The cards don't work that way. Intuition doesn't work that way. And life doesn't work that way. You're the only one who can take responsibility for your life, and the only one who can decide what to do. Now, I think that this is one of the reasons for why it's important to have like an intuitive practice that's daily, or that's regular, and that's part of your normal life, and that's not just something that you whip out when you're in despair or when something goes wrong. Because when you're in despair or something is going really wrong, it's actually really hard to get out of that space of wanting somebody else to tell you what to do. However, if you've already like strengthened your intuitive muscle and are used to working with your inner guidance in a way that allows that guidance to support you in your life, then it'll be easier to get through those hard times as well. And it's not like the cards and your intuition and spirit won't give you something useful. Of course they will. It's just that they might not give you a definitive answer. It might not give you the exact steps, the exact thing that you need to be doing. It's more like an advisor. So what you'll get is guidance, is advice, is some insight, essentially help to make the best decision you can, to shift your thinking into a more supportive mindset, and to be able to take the most aligned action for you, because that's what it's all about, right? We want you to be aligned with your soul self and living the best life that you can live, whatever that means to you. Okay, so let's look at some actual questions. Disempowering questions leave the power somewhere else, right? Disempowering just means that you're giving your power away to some external force. And it's really easy to do that to the universe, to spirit, to God, these big concepts, big energies that, we've decided have all the answers. So when we come to our intuitive practice from that space, it's disempowering. It's like showing up to a meeting with your boss and waiting for instructions. And that's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be being in our power and empowering ourselves to make good decisions and to create the lives that we want to create. So we're not looking for a boss to tell us what to do. We are looking for advice or insight or input. So, some examples of disempowering questions are things like, should I leave my job? Or should I leave my marriage? Or should I marry this person or that person? They're questions where you think you don't know the answer, or you're not giving yourself the permission to decide for yourself, and you're looking to someone else, to something else to make the decision for you. And why would you want anyone else to make those decisions for you? Like, those sound like pretty big decisions, who to marry and what to do for work. Those decisions have to be up to you. They have to be decisions that come from you. So you can rephrase any of those questions to questions that will give you the input that'll help you to make the best decision. So, like, what do I need to know about my job right now? Or what do I need to know about my relationship? Or how can I make this relationship better? Or how can I thrive more at work? Questions where the answer gives you something to go on yourself. Questions where the answer makes you an active participant. There is a role for you to play. There is something for you to contribute. And why wouldn't you want to contribute? Like, this is your life. Of course, you want to contribute to your life. Now, sometimes we say that disempowering questions are always yes or no questions. But when I was thinking about this in preparation for this video, I actually realized that that's not entirely true, even though I've said it myself in the past. One yes or no question isn't equal to another yes or no question. So, for example, you could ask, is this the best option for me? And if you phrase it in that way, you're not asking something external, you're asking yourself. You're using your cards to bring to the surface something that you can't easily or consciously see. And that, in that case, you can use that yes or no question and play with it and see what happens. So it's not fair to say that all yes or no questions are disempowering. Really, only you can know whether a question is empowering or not. And the way to do that is to be really honest about what you want from the answer, what you're expecting from the answer, and the assumptions on which your question is based. Are you assuming that you have the answers and you know what to do? You maybe just need some input? Or are you assuming that there's some other force external to you that knows better? And you'll get better at recognizing whether a question is a good question, a powerful question for you to ask with practice. You might ask some disempowering questions and see what kinds of answers you get, and see whether you want to follow that advice and whether that answer is actually making your life better. Because that's the point, right? Like, we use these intuitive tools to connect with our inner wisdom for the purpose of making our life better. If it's not helping you in some way, not helping you to grow, not helping you to advance on your goals, not helping you lead a happier, more fulfilling life, then there's no point. Okay, so I promised you some examples of powerful questions. So here we go. Anytime that you want to ask, should I do this? So asking for permission, asking for instructions, challenge yourself to rephrase it to something like, how can I move forward in the best possible way for me? And see what that brings. Whenever you want to ask, will this work? If I do this, will this get me what I want? Will it work? Try rephrasing it to something like, how can I help it work? What can I do to get the best possible outcome? Or what would help me shift my perspective here? Or even, why am I having such a difficult time making this decision? What do I feel is at stake? Because all those things, all the answers to those questions are going to help you make really good choices. Choices that are aligned with who you are, with what's best for you, with what you want from life. These sorts of questions keep the power with you. They assume that your desired outcome is possible, that it's possible for you to have the joy, the happiness, the fulfillment that you most desire. You're just asking on how to get there or how best to get there. So, next time you sit down with your oracle or tarot cards, make sure you pay attention to the question you're asking and adjust it. And if you're getting answers that aren't helpful, answers that you are not satisfied with, instead of assuming that the tool doesn't work, it's just a tool, or that you're not intuitive, which is completely untrue, ask yourself whether the question you asked was powerful enough to give you the kind of answer that you wanted, because they're linked. And if you want more specific questions, I'll link to my blog post with 44 powerful questions to ask your oracle or tarot cards. And in that blog post, there is a link to a free guide of 113 questions divided up by category like money and life and work, so that you can work through them at your own pace and use them for your practice moving forward. Always remember, you have the answers. You have access to all the wisdom within you, and you use your oracle or tarot cards to access that wisdom. You don't need to ask externally for the answers that you need. All right, thanks so much for watching. That is it. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you would like to share with me your favorite question to ask your oracle or tarot cards in the comments below, I would love to hear it. And yeah, that's it. I will see you in the next video. Bye.